It
So
looks, yeah, and I've got a little tick that you're doing it. Awesome, cool. So thank you for doing that. Yeah, thank you so much for your time straight away. It's really important to me that you've taken your time out to join my little stream, and hopefully we're going to build some understanding. But at the same time, we're not going to pull any punches. That's what I said in the thing. But when I say punches, we're not going to be rude unnecessarily. It's going to be like hopefully more intellectual. And I was listening to your conversation with Claire, who introduced us, and you were complaining that people are just not. I think we were talking about the far right. Some people call them the dissident right. They're just not being particularly intellectual, and you like
no.
the idea of being intellectual. And me too. I think we shouldn't just be insulting. We should be thoughtful, but say what we've got to say. If we don't say what we've got to say, we're not going to break the boundaries. It's just going to be resentment kept in, sort of thing, or all sorts of bad feelings. But by bringing out the feelings, we can test our ideas, and we don't have to agree. We don't have to force the other person to agree. Maybe just by sharing out the ideas, we learn from each other over time, and I'm sure we both learn from each other over time. Well, I'm always learning, um, so I'll quickly introduce myself to your channel. I'm an Ahmadi Muslim. We're famous for having love for all and hatred for none. We're persecuted by other Muslims, but we love everybody. We love homosexuals, but we don't approve. We don't say homosexuality is good, just like we love anybody who does anything. Um, uh, we just say just to clarify, what I say is that homosexuality is bad for you, or rather you don't do it. Just like I'd say anything, eating too much sugar bad for you, or rather you don't do it. And I don't eat too much sugar either. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. So that's where I come from. Do you want to say something more about yourself, Vincent, so I can learn as well?
um well, I mean, I guess my response to, why do you think homosexuality is wrong? Is it because of religion? Or, I mean, really, the only argument that I would ever accept against homosexuality would only be against sodomy. And that would be to say, well, the rectum wasn't really designed to be intruded like that and forcibly. And it's not designed that way. And even if you do it too much, you can damage it. Like, I do understand that argument. And if that was your only argument when it came to anal sex only, blowjobs are fine, but that's the Noahide code. That's how the Noahide code goes, actually. But like that you want to say it's unnatural? Is it unnatural for a penis to be inside a man's anus? I think so, yes. Just because it's unnatural, I think you get other benefits out of it, though. And if you don't do it that hard, you're not really gonna hardcore damage yourself or do anything. It might be like on the league of doing an extreme blowjob or something like that. Like, it's probably not the best for your throat, but if you're not doing it too hard,
Hmm.
it's not that bad. But like, what
So
is your
I would say
problem?
I would agree. Basically, I'm saying everybody knows the function of most things. So if I pick up my phone and I try to eat with it, you'd be like, hang on, what the heck are you doing? That doesn't make sense. Why are you eating with your phone? Your phone's got better uses, and this is how you're supposed to use it. And you can clearly see from the intricate design of the reproductive organs, both male and female, that they're supposed to work together, they're supposed to work in a special way. And what happens when you don't do it? And I'm glad you asked the question, because so what happens when you don't do it? Bad things happen to you physically, mentally. There are lots of repercussions. And so I'm glad you asked the question, because I want to make it clear that it's not purely or blindly ideological. My point of view, Islam says, or whatever religion says, therefore you shouldn't do it. There's in the Quran, it's always giving reasonings for why something is not good for you. So that's my brief answer. How do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, I think the thing is that, okay, here's what it is. A penis is also not supposed to be down your throat, and you can also hurt yourself doing that. So people are not as hung up about that. It's not the natural use for the throat. It's just that you're not supposed to be taking an object and plunging it back and forth inside your throat. You're just not supposed to be doing that. But, I don't feel that heterosexuals are like screaming at each other over oral sex. I mean, some of them do. I know there are heterosexuals who say it's just that oral sex is sodomy, and there were areas even in this country, I believe, at one time when sodomy was outlawed and include oral sex. Okay, so but the other thing about oral sex and anal sex, if you're not doing it that hard, most homosexuals who engage in anal sex every night don't report having horrible rectal problems. If you're fisting or something like that, yeah, you're going to get stretched out and you're going to give yourself a lot of problems. But if you're just recreationally having, you know, 1 or 2 rounds of sex a night, you're not going to like damage yourself to the point that you notice it. And, you know, it's not its natural purpose, but that doesn't mean, so your throat is not its natural purpose either, but you do it for pleasure and connection. Homosexuals get pleasure and connection out of that. There's more connection maybe you get between anal
I think
sex
you make a good point that sometimes people who are heterosexual do use their reproductive organs in a way that's not purely reproductive. I think that's a really good point. But that doesn't change the point that the main use is X, you know, reproduction, and it's really clear what that use is. So, for example, I could sometimes use my phone to eat my food, or I don't know, some other crazy stuff, right? But it's probably not a good idea long term because you probably damage the phone long term. So you
Okay, but you're
kind
not
of
damaging. Okay, well, not to interrupt you, but you're not damaging anything, and you're also just skipping over the fact that you're just saying, well, forget the throat, but you're focusing on the anus because it's particular to homosexuals, and there are even Muslims, there are conservatives that would say to you, if you're having oral sex, you're just as guilty. So there are conservatives that go beyond you. So it's a little hypocritical for you to only focus on the anus when even in your own community, there's people that are saying you're a liberal.
That's
And
right. No, I wasn't completely ignoring. I said it, I actually started off by saying you made a good point, and I was saying that my argument was that you should limit the stuff that's outside the direct function of it. That's all. So I do realize that maybe from your point of view, and maybe it's reasonable that you feel that you're particularly hated on, and then you say, why are you focusing on this thing that homosexuals do particularly? Why not focus on the things that heterosexuals do? And I would say,
you're breaking your own thing, and also you're talking about there's no damage going on this in this unnatural use. Okay, let's say that. Let's say I used, instead of using a phone, let's say I used a stick to pick up my food and eat it. Like, as long as the stick I washed it off, like, am I gonna die eating using a stick? No, I'm not gonna die eating using a stick if that's what I want to do. No one's going to die from normal everyday average sodomy or oral sex. So no one's going to die from that, and it's not its natural use, but you're not damaging yourself, but you are getting a social function. It's a bonding function. You're bonding with another human being on a level that you wouldn't be able to before. I mean, the entrance, I guess some homosexuals feel that anal sex is more intimate than oral sex, and you're not hurting yourself generally. No, you're not. And it serves another function. It's something that has been used to serve another function. Now it has a higher function. It's no longer just its natural function. It has a higher function. It brings you more above and beyond what nature gave you without really any side effects, except for the ones that you say mentally exist, which you can't really prove, which is why I say the only thing you would ever be able to rely on is that it could damage your anus. That is the only thing that I would accept as kind of like, well, this isn't a good idea because, it does break the blood vessels and all that other kind of stuff. That makes sense. But to say I'm psychologically damaged by that's rubbish. That's just some opinion. And
sure. So, I mean, before I forget, so I do think I'm glad you're here because you're making good arguments or strong arguments that I wouldn't have thought of by myself. So this is kind of the point of these kind of discussions, having different points of view. So you made 2 points which were interesting. You said, instead of having something high tech like a phone, let's give an example of something more simple like a stick. Why use a high tech example is kind of what I felt you were saying. And I think it's important to give the example of a high-tech example, because the more high-tech a system is, the more delicate it is and more carefully you have to use it. But a stick is more versatile, but because it's less high-tech. So people, if the more you're into health and things like that, the more you realize that there are very subtle things that you have to be really careful of. People eating too much suffer from obesity, and obesity is one of the biggest killers in the world at the moment. There's so many delicate things you have to do with the human body, and that's why it's really important to take the example of a high-tech thing, where high-tech things like your reproductive organs, and I think even in this scientific age, somehow we're unaware of how complicated these organs are. And so the more high-tech they are, the more careful we have to be. That's one argument. And then there was another really interesting argument you made, and I think this is increasingly common. It's the idea that
Hold on one second.
we're
What? I gotta. I can't. I'm sorry. I can't talk now. Sorry. Yes. The argument was what?
yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Thanks for hanging up on the phone. I appreciate that. So the second argument you made, which is really interesting, is that kind of like we've gone beyond the limitations of our natural bodies, kind of thing. Like our natural bodies said we should be doing X, but like now we're beyond that. We don't have to be limited to that. And I'm finding that in reality, the more we try to go away from nature, we're finding genetically modified food and so many other things that are kind of unnatural. So I'm not against just homosexuality. I'm against anything that's kind of away from the clear biological design of something. We find again and again that it becomes really unhealthy. And I've been even discussing this with my son just a minute earlier on. He was saying like, oh, protein shakes, what's unnatural about that? What's wrong with, we were having a discussion about, interestingly, Diet Coke. Do you have Diet Coke in your picture, by the
Yeah, I
is that
drink diet soda. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was saying, oh, there's a TikTok video showing me it's like it's all natural, aspartame, nothing wrong with that. It's just made out of chemicals, made out of something else that's natural or something. And I was saying, our history is shown in health, even if I'm not an expert in it, anything that goes away from nature to any degree, like we found, for example, I don't know if you know, like juicing is bad for you, but if you keep the pulp, it's better for you. If you keep the whole fruit, much better for you. Do you see where I'm coming from? So we
Yes.
can't go away from nature,
Yeah.
I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay. So I'll totally. Number one, you use that phone high tech. I maybe I'm having trouble seeing why you used that, but you were trying to equate high tech to our sex organs being high tech and delicate. And yes, they are delicate and they are sensitive. Look, I believe that homosexual men or even straight men who put something up their anus, but it's different when two people are having sex rather than you're just using a dildo on yourself. I think that there is some kind of, okay, when a man and a woman come together and have penile vaginal sex, it
I
stimulates
can hear.
emotions and physical sensations in the body that heighten you, and it does something to you. And I think that when homosexuals do it, we do get something unique. We get a unique form that probably, heterosexuals can't understand, but we do get our own unique form of biochemical reaction and emotional reaction and this kind of thing. And I think it's good. And I think that, how heterosexuals channel their sexual instincts into higher things than just child reproduction. They get metaphysical and religious about it, and so do homosexuals. And I think that we benefit very much from that. And I think people are scared that if we engaged in that too much, too freely, we might evolve and pair evolve too much and bond too much and become a little bit too powerful. And then you would, not be able to put us down. The thing about nature, and I'm going to tell you why I think that homosexuals should push unnaturalism, not anti-naturalism.
Can you say the word poach? Did you say
Push?
Push. Oh, shit. Sorry. Go on.
should push unnaturalism, not anti-naturalism, unnaturalism. This idea that what's natural is good and nature made it perfect is absolute garbage. And I learned this when I was working. I used to work for the world's most famous immunogeneticist. And so basically what her research was this, that let's say, okay, before she invented her medicine, if you got into a car accident, or if you got a cut, or if you got any kind of, if you got a cut and you got gram-negative bacteria inside of your body, what would happen was your immune system would respond to it, and it would blow up, and it would go into overdrive, and you would go into shock and die. So, okay, the average person who believes in that nature is supreme, they would think to themselves, okay, well, there's something wrong with the bacteria, and your immune responded to it, and it went a little too high and you died. So the problem is that you're allergic to bacteria. No, that's not the problem. The problem is you're not allergic to bacteria. Bacteria doesn't destroy you at all. It doesn't, this kind of bacteria, gram-negative bacteria, doesn't do a fucking thing to your body. What it does is your body falsely, for no reason, takes a totally neutral object that cannot harm you and blows up into an overdose immune response for absolutely no reason. You kill yourself for nothing. You didn't need the immune.
So just so I understand, so you're saying if you have some sort of, was it a cut and some bacteria come into you, and
Yes.
the bacteria causes, and bacteria are not harmful, is that what you're saying?
No, there's a certain kind of bacteria that when it gets into your body, it causes an immune response, but it doesn't need to. You're not allergic to the bacteria. Your body is like, basically, it's taking something that's not a problem and turning it into a problem.
Okay.
Because now what we can do through science, we turn off your natural instinct. So let's say that you get into a car crash and this bacteria gets into your body. We turn off nature's instinct, and then the bacteria is just in your body. It doesn't hurt you. It doesn't infect you. It doesn't touch you. And then it just will slowly drain out of your body. And then when it's gone, you turn the body back on. The body, this is all over. This is creationist type of nature got it perfect. There are thousands of examples. Appendix. Why do we don't need our appendix. Appendicitis, wisdom teeth. How many people, if we didn't have modern dentistry, how many people's lives would be destroyed because of wisdom teeth? It goes on and on and on. All these mistakes that are in nature, all these horrible systems that are in nature, the way animal systems are set up in human nature, it's barbaric, it's cruel.
I'm sorry. So I'll just respond quickly because before I forget all the things you said. So again, thank you for your great points. I think you're saying, in short, you're saying, because I have to summarize to help myself understand. You're saying nature isn't perfect, and you gave examples of the appendix and wisdom teeth and things like that. And some of these things, I think appendix is. So it used to be called a vestigial organ, or basically, what was the term for things
vestigial, that meaning it's useless, but it just, if you take it out, it doesn't really do anything. But if it is there, you have the danger of getting appendicitis.
Sure. So I would respond that that's what we used to think, and more of the things that we thought were useless were actually useful. So what I've understood from the appendix, it helps with stress, for example.
Okay, but I did give you an example of something that's not, I mean, okay, let's not.
Oh, yeah, no, I shouldn't overlook the great point you made, which I have to learn more about, which is you're saying there's a specific kind of bacteria.
Yeah.
And I'd love you to afterwards, in the comments or something, because I like to continue the conversations with everybody else who's watching. Just could you post when you find out what that bacteria is, and we could
gram-negative. It was called gram-negative bacteria. The woman, if you want, Sana Goyert, SANNA GOYERT, Sana Goyert, immunogenetics, gram-negative bacteria. Her whole life was based on that. And so basically, the thing, you want to save a person's life, turn off their nature. You have to turn off their nature to save their life. And then, because nature will kill them. Nature will do that in a lot of ways. There's a lot of things where nature will kill you. And that's why I think homosexuals should become the people of unnaturalism, because unnatural helps us escape nature. It makes life kind, it makes life simple, it makes life smart and wise and advanced, and all this life that we have is unnatural. That doesn't mean you need to be anti-natural, doesn't mean it needs to be toxic and destroy the environment. But at the same time, yeah, embrace, we're the people of unnatural. Like, be the scientists, be the engineers, be the chemists and this kind of stuff. That's what I'm saying. But I enjoy,
Sure.
I'm to preserve nature. Nature is good. I'm not saying like we shouldn't go on and like turn everything into an agrobiz field, but yeah, like genetic engineering done right is good, done right. But I'm sorry to tell you, the world is still ruled by heterosexuals, and as long as it's done, nothing's going to be done nicely. So,
Okay, cool.
so
Okay, so I mean that's a great point. I don't want to cut you off too much, but I think what I was going to say is that sure, I think that's a good introduction point of like where we're both coming from is our ideas, and nobody has to agree particularly on one idea or the other. I mean, I've definitely learned a lot from you already. But I want to go into the main topic. I mean, is that okay, Vincent?
yeah,
Like,
that's fine.
yeah, because I think we've both given some great points on both sides, something to think about, right? And so the title I put in is "Rise of Gay Families: Gay Supremacists versus Muslims." Try to get some attention, but the more detailed thing that I wanted and agreed to talk to you about is something that maybe I even should have put in the title because it's so important, so such a big problem right now, is failing relationships and failing families. And so people don't know that a lot of people still, I'm not sure if a lot of people don't know, but I think it's still the case that people think that we have a population explosion and we've got too many people in the world. And actually, statistically, the number of people, we've got a population implosion, and people like Elon Musk are saying it's the most dangerous thing humanity is facing, the lack of human beings. So there's
Well,
a lot of problems with families not having enough of children, but even fatherless families and motherless families and
but can
breakups
I,
in families. Sorry, you were going to say?
yeah, can I just jump in on that? That
Yep.
the thing is that, look, the only people who have really stopped having children are white people.
Yeah.
The idea that the population is shrinking on this planet is absurd. Like, you have to be living inside a bubble if you're going to say that we're running out of people. It's that white people are not having children is what's going on, and that's what people are apprehensive about. And I mean, there's plenty of children in South America and in Africa and in India and in Asia and in all these other places. And I mean, I think you have to kind of be a little bit more honest about what you're talking about when you talk about, and when you talk about population control. On that's the other side, in that, well, who's producing all the population? White people are not producing all the population. So
Yeah,
when you
I
say,
often say Muslims are having most children in the world, so I agree with you in that sense. Yeah.
well, yeah, if you say population control, who are you talking about? Who are you
So I
talking
don't know
about?
about population control. I'm not advocating population control. I'm encouraging. Oh, wait, one of the many problems that we're going to talk about is one of the main problems is that white people are not having enough kids, and I like white people to have more kids, rather just all brown. Like it's good to have a mix. So that's one of those topics that we are going to cover, and then also the failing relationships. I think is the cause of the failing families. If you don't have stable families, it's hard to have lots of children. And also, you don't want unstable families with children because, as we'll probably talk about or agree or disagree, it's really important for children to have parents, and there's a lot of statistical information about this. So that's just kind of roughly what we're talking about. But then going back to the main title that I put in the video, the rise of gay families, because you're a gay supremacist, I had a feeling maybe you might support the idea of more gay families, and
Yeah.
people might even think maybe since heterosexual relationships are failing so badly, you got in the West 50% of marriages break down and they're mostly heterosexual. Maybe it is gay families are going to take over. So I've just kind of introduced a few things. Do you want to say anything about that so
Well,
far?
I do want to pinpoint why families are breaking down and why the heterosexual order is breaking down. And that's because women now have options. Until recently, men designed the system so women had no options. They had no jobs. They couldn't go to school. A lot of times they couldn't read. They couldn't vote. They couldn't do a lot of things. They were dependent upon a man. And she had none of her own money. And slowly, as feminism took over, and women got more and more and more in options, they don't want to deal with heterosexual men anymore because I'm sorry, heterosexual men are really fucked up. They're really fucked up.
I'm enjoying this, don't worry. Go on,
No, they're really fucked up. And that's what's
Yeah.
happening. Women now have options and they're not dealing with it anymore. And feminism, do I want to get rid of the heterosexual breeding order slowly? And yes, reintroduce a new kind of gay system of breeding. And yeah, I really support, if you want to destroy heterosexual relationships, educate the women, give them jobs, let them vote.
Sure,
Give
I
them
agree. So I'm so glad you said this because not enough people are saying this thing about choice, right? I agree that the reason why many relationships are breaking down, both on the women's side and men's side, but you're right, most divorces are, I think 85% of um, divorces are initiated by women. So it is true that women are choosing to leave. But I would say it's the choice on both sides that are causing the failing relationships, the sexist societies. There's so many statistics people don't maybe are not aware of. Like so many people are not even bothering to get into relationships and into because so there's men as well. From I think it was it 50% of men 18 to 30 years old in the West are not even had sex in a year and generally are avoiding relationships. So I'm really glad you pointed out this thing about choice. And this is my point about choice. So, what happens throughout history is that technology comes along every now and then that changes things, and we have to be able to make more, what's the word, thoughtful or more conscious moral choices. So you have to say, so I call moral choices, like a marriage between man and women, right? And marriage, full stop, even, which is becoming increasingly unpopular. So before, women were forced into, before the pill and things like that, women were forced into marriage to for the men to support the children and things like that. So many other kind of necessary things that required them to stay married. They were absolutely finished if they didn't. Um, but now they can get over it. Yeah, I mean, they can get past that, and now they have to consciously make the choice to be married. So I agree, and my argument would be simply this: that now we have to consciously make the choice to be married in a heterosexual relationship. This is what I'm going to be arguing for. So thank you for making that point. Do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, well, the point is that, so, okay, let me just tell you what my agenda is that I want to get rid of monogamy generally. So basically what I say is that the homosexuals should come together and let's get the women out from their monogamous families so that we don't need to worry about straight men controlling them. We don't want that. Okay, so we come together and pool all our money together and buy these women as surrogates or get them involved in a cult somehow. Okay, and so we're buying the babies from them. So
okay,
what I want,
go on.
I don't want them with you. So I'm saying educate them. And if we start supporting them and if we go to them and be like, look, we'll pay your house, we'll pay your car, we'll pay your college tuition. You can fuck any guy you want. You can do whatever you want. Just have our babies and we'll pay you a salary. And I want to get women away from you.
So just to clarify because I was going to ask you about this. This is kind of interesting. Everybody's saying, wow, this is interesting. Okay. So, I mean, you don't have that many gay supremacists, so maybe I'm just not aware of them. But so what you're talking about, because Claire kind of told me, didn't really tell me, but she mentioned you want to create a new way of having children or something, a sexless way of having children. What is it?
Artificial wombs, artificial wombs.
Well, okay, go for it. Go, like, educate us
Okay,
all
yeah.
about
So,
your
yeah,
ideas
I
about
mean,
that,
look,
so
but
we can learn.
maintaining surrogates is going to be very costly, expensive. You know, what if they want to leave? What if they want to take the baby with them? What if they fall in, I don't know. Like 100 things can happen wrong with the woman. I would like to think if you gave her money and a car and a house and all this other kind of stuff and told her she could fuck any guy she wanted, she would just have the kids. But you never know. There's emotions involved and it can get slick, sticky. So my big thing is that homosexuals should put all of their resources into creating artificial wombs. Like I said, we need to be masters of unnaturalism. Like, create that artificial womb. Let's just get away from the whole women and heterosexual totally and just breed ourselves. Like, do it.
I didn't understand the do it bit. So, I mean, by the way, everybody seeing me nod, it just means I understand what you're saying. It doesn't mean I necessarily agree. It's just how I do it. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm learning. Okay, go. So you would like, in the ideal situation, basically machines that could breed children. Is that a great
Yes.
idea? Okay,
Yes.
they're running on batteries, sort of Matrix style.
No, I mean, it doesn't have to be classless like that. It can be a nice, beautiful, religious experience if you want it to be. Make it look like a temple, and it doesn't have to be so nasty, matrix wires and batteries and.
Okay, so right, so let's just jump into that before I forget, because I wasn't sure how we're going to go through the whole thing. I kind of felt like we're going to start with relationships themselves. I suppose we are in a way, but we're talking about the reproduction system. So I've been reading a book called Them Before Us. Have you heard about it? It's a pair of women who are talking about the dangers of anything but biological parents taking care of their children. And
Yeah,
so
I know. And then you ignore
I just to make my quick point is that with children who've been, or adults who've been through this process of IVF and so many things, this could be even heterosexual couples going through IVF and so many other, let's say, surrogacy and so many other systems of they call it sexless reproduction. There is a need, an inner need for children to be connected with their biological children. Biological parents. This is known sort of throughout history. Anybody who's kind of adopted, they're always looking for their biological parents. There's some sort of inner need, and people who've been created, let's say, through IVF, they often feel like they've been created by a machine. They feel they don't have a sense of identity. There's a lot of, I could read through some examples of that from the book, but how do you feel about that? Because I'm
first of all,
sure
you'd have to
when
show
you
me
have
show me a scientific study that children born with IVF are having mental problems because they feel like they don't have a soul. That sounds like I've heard. Like, actually, I would say that if they do feel like that, it's religious people's fault, because religious people say children who were born with IVF have no soul. So if you're running around,
it's not that they don't have soul. There's some sort of inner need, and you must have.
They feel like that because part of the reason they might be feeling like that is because they've heard it 1,000 times from a religious person who told them they have no soul. Because why are they even thinking that? Might it be because somebody put that out there 5,000 times in their lifetime? And I also want to see a study that this is actually a real pandemic problem amongst IVF babies, that they have that problem. As for, look,
What do you mean a pandemic problem? I didn't understand that. So, me and we've got a Christian here, Tayo, we both say that IVF babies have a soul. We're not denying that, but
I know, but you
There's
told me that some of these people think that, and I'm telling you it would be because
Oh,
religious
okay.
people are.
Maybe some of these people I haven't heard that. I'm just saying that you must have seen sort of movies and or just like you must know people who have been adopted. Let's just say adopted people
Yes,
and people they have a longing to know their biological
but wait, when did
parent.
I ever
It's
say these children wouldn't know? They would have a father and they would have a mother. I didn't say I was dragging them away from anyone. And also, we are making technology now that more than two people could be the parent. You can mix two men and one woman, or two women and one man, or two women. You know, you can.
how does that work? How, I mean, you could
It works.
splice a
Well, I
sperm
don't know the
into.
science behind it, but
Oh,
it's
okay,
either here or it's coming. So,
okay. I
you
can
know,
imagine it could
we can
possibly
work with
chop up
three-way
chromosomes.
parenthood. That's how,
Yeah.
yeah, we could work with three-way parenthood. Um, but I don't look. I don't think there's a problem with children being with or IVF thinking they have no soul, and I don't think if you were born in an artificial womb, you'd be like, I'm soulless. Like, especially if the cult you were born into was teaching you just the opposite of that and said these Muslims that are coming over here with their propaganda saying you have no soul are a pack of fucking assholes.
But I didn't. I'm a Muslim. I'm not saying that.
I know, but a lot of them
Oh,
do.
oh, some. Okay, fine. Yeah, okay, sure. I mean, yeah, maybe they're not. That's
Yeah,
terrible
my
thing for
children won't
Muslims to
have
say.
problems because they're not going to be listening to people like that.
Okay, so I just want to get your idea. So the people who are adopted, let's just say, and their adoptive parent, not adoptive parents, they're the parents who said, gave birth to them, said they want to remain anonymous. Are you saying it's religious teachings that have made them want for their biological parents
No,
to
no,
want
that's
to know
something.
them?
No, 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 no. You switched it. Something very specific. I
Okay.
said, if children who are born from IVF feel as though they have no soul, part of that or a lot of that could come from society, which says that all the time, especially from religious people. So if religious people are putting it out there that IVF children have no soul, and then religious people are going to come up and be like, look, here's some IVF children who think they have no soul. Well, maybe they think that because you were saying it. Okay, like maybe that's why. It's like when religious Muslim parents are like, talk nothing about filth about homosexuals, and then they're like, see, gay people are always depressed. Why are they so depressed? We do nothing but talk about shit about them all day and persecute them. They're depressed because they're gay and evil. No, they're depressed because you're a fucking asshole.
Okay. I mean, my argument would be the reason I'm just going through the ideas as we go along, but I want to get back to heterosexuals soon. The reason why homosexuals are depressed because there is a high prevalency of depression amongst homosexuals. I would say one of the many reasons is that they have there's very low rates of long-term relationships. So I was doing some research before the show. It's only like just over 1% of homosexual relationships last over a year.
Yeah,
I mean,
because we're supposed to be living in a communal setting where we're polygamous with each other and we're supposed to be child rearing collectively. That's like, it's this unnatural, it's the natural unnaturalism. Like, allow this naturalism to go to its full extent, allow like homosexual militantism to like bloom to extent, and we'll be living in collectives, fucking each other and breeding. Okay. Like we
but
would be a lot
I
happier.
mean,
We're
I'm
living
not
on
sure
a
about.
more monogamous system. We're not meant. We see. You won't let us build the commune, or you never would. It's starting to happen naturally now. You
Yeah.
always wanted these like monogamous families, everywhere, and you built the civilization around monogamy. We would build a civilization around polyamory, and
Okay.
the system would be different. We'd be a lot happier. Okay,
Yeah.
we'd have our commune. Maybe we would have less intimate one-on-one relationships, but we would have like the brotherhood.
Yeah. I just to make it kind of fun in a way, I think your main not competitor, is that word? Adversary are the Muslims because everybody else is dying out, right? So it's
Well,
like,
yeah, I mean, yes, Muslims are very dangerous.
yeah. In
I
terms of reproduction, keeping the, let's say, the status quo of traditional families. If
Yes.
anybody's doing that, it's the Muslims.
Yes.
There's a
Yes.
few, there's one or two Christians who are managing it, but not really.
No, I mean, well, the Christians are not really keeping up, but I mean, I put my biggest threat is Noahidism. I am scared of Islam, and I do hate Islam, and I do everything I can to destroy Islam at every step of the way. But the Jews are smarter, and the Noahide movement is going to be a lot more popular in the West in the next 15 to 20 years than Islam will be.
So you mentioned the Noahides. Could you, before you even mention explain to everybody what Noahides are, because I'm relatively new to that, but I know now, but you sound a bit religious as well. This is really interesting. I think I listened to an earlier conversation. Were you an ex-Jehovah's Witness?
I was an ex-Jehovah's Witness, and now I'm an ex-Hindu, and now I have no religion or anything.
Okay, so why not throw that in? So tell me, like, to what extent are you religious? Do you believe in God?
I'm totally agnostic now. I don't know if God lives or not, and I actually am very much against any supernatural thinking. I believe supernatural thinking is evil. I think that the only thing that rules this universe everywhere and in every place and at every time is science. There is no such thing outside of science. There's no magic. There's no hocus pocus. There's no God. Like, if God exists, he's within the realms of science. If God just doesn't break scientific law and sprinkle fairy dust and make things happen. Science is the dominant force always, and I think to think anything other than that is really fucking evil.
Yeah, I agree with you to a large extent. I think a lot of religious people, so Ahmadi Muslims, are very scientific, far more scientific than other Muslims and generally any other religious group. Like, when we talk about miracles, we talk about the scientific mechanisms for certain things that have happened in the past, and so I often joke with the Christians, if they can't explain something, they say it's a mystery. Like, if they can't explain the Trinity, there's a mystery, you just have to believe. And then with the Muslims, we often have this thing they often have this thing, because I don't have this thing, where if they can't explain something, they say it's a miracle. So same different M word, but explaining the same sort of problem, which is if they can't explain something, they just use the M word, miracle or mystery. So I do believe that we should be scientific. My only qualm with what you've got to say is that if you follow the science, if you follow the logic, you have to believe there is a God. And I've talked to this many times. So and I'm not anti-evolutionary either. So if you just simply do some maths, or if you look at basic science, so there's one basic science, and it's sort of self-explanatory. Second law of thermodynamics. Have you heard of it? Entropy.
Yes, but I know it doesn't prove God. I know that.
Okay, so I would say there's a lot of things that point that God must exist, and then proving God, you could phrase it in different ways. Maybe you have personal experience on top of that. But the second law of the thermodynamics, without getting into too much, but I think it's a simple one to explain, even though it sounds really complicated, is that things by default, if they're left to their own devices, as it were, they fall apart, because there are more ways of falling apart than coming together. It's actually very complicated to put, let's say, a building together or something like that. And this is our common experience. If you see a sandcastle, you never think that sandcastle was made by itself. And if you leave that sandcastle for long enough, the default is that it's going to disappear within a year. Okay, that's our common experience. So without seeing, when you see a creation complicated and functioning in all sorts of amazing ways, without seeing the creator, there must be a creator. And we can do some basic maths, and you realize it has to be a creator. But that's why all I'm saying is follow the science, and you come to God anyway.
No, but I'm an agnostic, so your argument doesn't worry or doesn't work against me, because I say my thing is, I don't know what created the universe. Maybe something created it. Maybe it was always created. I don't know. But what made it, I don't know. And that's when.
But do you believe in science?
Yes, I do, but I still don't know what created the universe.
Sure. Like they say, follow the money and you can get to it.
Okay, how do I get to Allah? Tell me how I get from ABC or 1, 2, 3 to Allah. How
So
do
I
I
just
get?
gave you an example.
No,
So
that's so Allah's the creator. So okay, the universe had to be created, so that means the creator's Allah, and this is what he likes, and this is his name, and this is where he goes, and this is his prophet. How do you get that from science?
so that's
You
a really
don't.
good question. So no, because for example, in the Quran, we've got lots of scientific truths like the Big Bang that weren't known beforehand, at the time 1000 years ago, even only 50, 70 years ago. Albert Einstein struggled with the idea of the Big Bang, and it's very clearly explained in the Quran. There's so many amazing things like the age of the world, planet Earth,
Yeah,
compared to the
Hindus
age of
have
the
a lot of
universe.
scientific rubbish too. They have a
Yeah,
lot of
so all
scientific
I would say,
garbage.
without going into that too much,
I know,
because
but it's not science. They pretend that they're scientists because they have some science in their books. Hinduism is not science. Hinduism, you don't get to Hinduism from science. You don't get to Islam from science. You don't get to Christianity from science. You don't get to astrology from science. You don't get to any of that from science.
okay, so there's some great comments. Um, us, I like because it is a live stream. It's good to get. Are Ahmadi a scientific naturalist? I don't know what that means. Do you know what that means?
Yeah, like do you believe? Yeah, do you not believe in any supernaturalism? Is
No, I
Allah?
believe in God. I just think that God is evident through His works.
No,
So
do you think Allah is a slave to the laws of nature, or
no,
is he above them?
Allah created the laws of nature and is wise enough to have a set of laws of nature that He doesn't have to break. So He doesn't break any laws of His
But he's
nature.
above them. He doesn't need to follow them.
Yeah, he's outside them. Yeah, but he doesn't.
Outside
He
them,
doesn't
yeah.
break his laws though
That's
within
where
the
the
world.
problem comes from.
No, but
That's
he doesn't break his laws
he
within the
didn't break, but he's
universe.
outside them. And he breaks them every day if he's doing movements outside the laws of science. I mean,
Yeah, I
his
mean, my picture is like, here's the universe. God's kind of not limited to physical things. He's not physical, So he's that you can't push him around because he's not atoms and things like that. So
yeah, no, I mean,
yeah,
yeah, but I mean, it's just there's no reason to go there. I mean, this is for people who are too arrogant to say I don't know. This is for people who cannot. Some people cannot say I don't know. They have to know everything, and
yeah,
they will. And
sure.
when you get into supernaturalism, you'll make up anything. Supernaturalists will make up anything.
Sure. Okay. And then there's another comment which is you can't get to Allah, you can get to a God. I think basically a God. And I agree. Like I kind of want to limit the conversation to like go back to relationships, but I agree from what we've said, the starting point is that yes, science points to a God. How do you know it's a particular kind of God and things like that? That's a longer discussion. I would say the short version is the scriptures prove they're from God, and then they tell you what God is from that. So God had to communicate in one way, and
Okay,
that's how He does it, right?
just as
But
we're
go on. You
that
say the last thing, and I'm going to jump.
yes, just so we know that scriptural reference and analysis has nothing to do with science or logic. That's very like just what is it called? Zealot thinking or whatever. They have their own little doctrines and stuff like that, but it has nothing to do with science or logic. That the Quran tells you who God is or proves. The Quran doesn't prove it's from God. No scientist or logician on earth would tell you that unless they were a Muslim fanatic.
Sure, I'm not going to respond to that. I mean, I've already said what I said, so that's fine. And I'm glad we're having such an amazing conversation that 1 hour is pretty much gone and we barely touched the topic. So what I'll do, and with your, and only with your permission, do we go beyond an hour? I mean, we don't have to because we
We
could change the title to something else, right?
we can no, it's fine. I'm whatever's going on is
Yeah.
fine.
So let's kind of. I want to just dive into a few of the points that I was excited to talk about. Um, I'll put it really simply. So, what's going on with why are relationships failing? Why are people not having children? And what is the result of that? I like to try to simplify it, and there are different levels of that simplification. One level, I would call it godlessness. And why do I call it godlessness? Statistically, we can say, and maybe hopefully you agree, that the people who are have the longest, most stable relationships, the people who have the most children are religious, even if they're not Muslim. Orthodox Jews, Orthodox Christians, statistically, having a belief in God, however rational or irrational you want to agree with or whatever, that makes that makes a difference. But further down, what is the consequence of godlessness? And I would say greed, and a special kind of greed, which is, I call it addiction. Because when you don't have peace from a relationship with God, and only God can give you peace, you are continuously finding something to fill that vacuum. Um, and those things are never good enough, so you're always chasing one thing or after the other, and it's greed. And so why do I say greed? I know that I'm going on a bit of a what's this, a bit of a speech here, but I just want to quickly get across an idea. um, I would say, here's an example of, and it's a general complaint about why relationships are failing. A lot of people complain why, and we're talking about women, you know, asking for divorce at a very high rate, is because they're looking at their husband and say, that's not good enough. I want more. I want more, and it's not good enough. And then they don't necessarily get more. I know people who have
No,
got
uh,
divorced and they don't get any more. So I stopped talking there, but I would say godlessness and greed is ruining a lot of things,
no,
and they're the
no.
core problems.
They're not looking at you and saying it's not good enough. Straight men are not good enough. Okay, they're not. Women, I told you the problem, we already said what the problem was, and that's choice. Women are no longer slaves. They are no longer, they have autonomy. And the vast majority of straight men do not treat women well. The vast majority of straight men are abusive towards women, and so they're leaving in droves. I'm just saying, it's you're saying godlessness, but when you say godlessness, you mean a religious type of godlessness, and this religion imposes this patriarchal order where everyone suffers, including the men, but mostly the women and the children. And you're saying, well, we need to bring that back if we're going to keep our breeding up. And I'm saying, no, we're going to do it if we let's invent the artificial wombs. Let's buy up the women as surrogates. Let's forget God. No, you don't have to forget God. You have to forget Islam in this kind of like traditional way of life. I mean, if you want to be a pantheist or something like that, I don't care. But
Sure.
if you're going to come in with this kind of like, we need the patriarchy of Islam back, like that's no, I mean, we're going to fight you tooth and nail on that. That's not
Yeah,
what we
we're
need.
up for it. Okay, so you mentioned, and thank you for people in the comments are reminding me of, like, I was going to ask you about the Noahide laws, and people are asking, like, I think you feel like, do you want to follow certain religious laws because you're talking
No, I
about
don't.
Noah?
No,
Oh,
no,
you
no.
don't.
I've developed my own religious laws, which I will get into. It's part of my whole gay militant agenda. I don't want to reveal my tactics yet, but I do not follow.
Oh, is your sound
Yes,
there?
I
Oh,
do, but
yeah.
I don't want to discuss that yet because I haven't announced that yet, and
Oh, okay, cool.
that's
That's
yeah,
fine.
that's
I'm looking
I'm
forward
very
to learn.
normally very open, but I don't want to, when you haven't written something yet or you haven't posted it yet, you don't want to say it like on a podcast before it's in your official writing. you
Yeah,
know
sure. And often
like
it's good
I
to
want it to
write
come
it
out
down.
officially
Yeah.
on my letterhead the first time. I don't want to spill it on a podcast, you know what I
Oh,
mean?
not my
So but
podcast.
with the
Okay.
Noahide laws,
Yeah.
well, they're
So
very
why
much.
were you mentioning the Noahide laws in particular then? What, are you a fan of them in some ways?
No, I'm not. No, I'm very much against them. I mean, Noahide law is just as much against this as Islam, if not more. The Noahide laws are just they're the Jewish Gentiles version of Sharia. It's Sharia
They're
for
just the
non.
basic, very basic teachings, a few laws. Is that right?
Yeah, it's like bare bones Sharia for Gentiles.
Sure. Okay. And I can't remember what they are, but they're very basic laws. I can't remember.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
no idolatry, no blasphemy, no homosexuality, no murder, no theft. Do not eat the flesh cut from a living animal. Set up courts of justice.
Wow,
To
you're an
enforce.
expert in this kind of stuff.
Oh yeah,
So
no, I run a whole blog on them.
okay, so let's go into that tiny bit because it's obviously it's like kind of begs the question, like, if you don't care about these things and you hate them so much, like, why do you write a blog about it? Why do you know it so well?
Well,
Just
because I
to
hate
help
them
us.
and I'm trying to expose them and destroy them.
Oh, okay, fair enough. I see. Okay. Okay. Um same, what's this? Sound based Oh, okay. I didn't actually totally understand the phrase based. Normally they talk about right-wing people being based and direct. Is that right?
Based is like when no, yeah, I mean, but based is basically you're an asshole and you say
Okay.
something fucked up, like, yeah, women deserve to be beaten,
Or
or
you
some,
say it without, yeah, without filter or something, because I think
yeah,
some
but
people
no, but you're
consider it's a
being an
good thing.
asshole, like being based is being like openly trashy, anti-Semitic. You know what I
Okay,
mean?
I'm not sure about anti-Semitic, but yeah, okay, cool. Anyway, so that's it. Thanks for explaining that to me in your own way. Okay, so okay, so I'm just trying to go. Uh, so I suppose actually I don't want. I want to avoid anything to do with directly homosexual because I want to get into more stuff, which is okay. Here's an idea. Tell me what you think. I think we're. There were okay. So I think this greed which comes from the unmet need, and you don't have to agree with the God thing, right? Obviously, you don't agree with the God thing. Unmet spiritual need, which only comes from God, is creating hell for us. And that's the kind of next point I want to make is that there are a lot of people who are very unhappy because, and this is, I'm going to get into the greed thing a bit more. Why do so many people not have children? It's not that they don't plan to have children, they just plan to have everything else lined up beforehand. We've got to have enough money, we've got to have this, whatever. But interestingly, the people who have the most children are the ones who are poor anyway. They're not concerned about that. That's not their excuse.
Yeah,
It's
and that's
just,
the problem. They're producing, it's the worst people are producing all the children. I mean, how dare you sit there and you're living in slums and breed all these kids and be like, ha ha, look at us, we're reproducing. You're reproducing rats and trash. You don't educate them, you beat them, you treat them like garbage. They live in slums and you're having 8 of them and you're going to go up to white people and be like, ha ha ha. No, white people have high standards and they don't want to have 8 kids in a slum.
wow,
You're low if
that's a
you're
good
doing
point.
that, and it's your problem because your people directly avoided birth control. You didn't want it. You didn't want the feminism. You didn't want the birth rate to go down. You would rather procreate like rats in garbage than have birth
I mean, a
control.
good point, but I don't agree with it. Okay, so I would, my comeback would be that when I've been to poorer countries, I don't. The stereotypes of what you see in Western TV is not very accurate, and I would say, in short, they're far happier. I'm moving. I'm moving out of the West, by the way. I'm moving to the Middle
Okay,
East.
no, don't come in with the who's happier and who's not. There's tons of suicide in the Muslim community. Women drink bottles of Drano and Clorox to escape Islamic families. Do not tell me Muslims are so happy. They're not happy. You have a lot of mental illness in your community, and that's known in the mental health world too. You have really high rates of mental illness in your cult. So don't act like you're happy people.
So I would. So interestingly, the psychology reports that I've read, generally just for let's focus on Muslim women since I think you just mentioned them. Not just actually. Broader than just Muslim women, religious women who choose, because it's really important, the choice bit is really important in the study, choose to be, what's the word, modest, wear modest clothes, they have less body image issues. So that would be one way of demonstrating that they are happier. And I would say loads of people are beginning to realize people who are traditional are far happier than people who are not. I mean, what do you
Yeah,
think
low
about
people
wearing?
are happy. You know what? If you kind of show who you are, yeah, you're going to be a little bit. Oh, let me make sure I look good. People are covered in a badge. So I don't care if I look like shit. Nobody looks at me anyway. My culture doesn't care about that. I'm ugly. So what? You go to a culture where like it likes beauty, and yeah, people are like it's like if you live in a culture where wealth is promoted, like yeah, like people worked hard about wealth, like look up to that. And you know what wealthy people are? They're a little bit concerned about their status. That's maybe poor people don't have that because they don't have that in them because they have low standards. Have you ever thought of that? Poor people and ugly people are there because they have low standards, and you're just trying to cover this up with a bin bag. Like that's why your people are so ugly and low.
Oh, I thought we were good looking, but anyway, is Vincent? I'm just wondering what a link button means. Bubblegum Gun, is he like a fan of yours?
He knows me.
He knows you. Cool, cool.
Well,
Just
that's
it's good.
why, and
Welcome,
no, there was
bubblegum gang.
there was a
Welcome.
eugenicist theorist, and I do believe in what he said because
Go on, go on.
Christianity, the white race was getting ugly because Christianity was emphasizing homely women over like the sex bot. Like in pagan society, like, you know, it was the sex temple and the sexy woman and the prostitute and all this stuff. And he said, no, when Christianity came, everything was about like being all homely and like simple and like, you know, like milk. And, you know, he said that the men started getting women like that. And then the race started getting more unattractive, is which I think did happen. But Christianity just makes you ugly anyway because it distorts your face and your character and all that. But you know, these religions, they make people ugly. They're about ugliness and lowness, and don't let don't let the pretty people be on top. Don't let the wealthy people be on top. Like, let's make sure all the shitty people are too stupid to use birth control and selectively breed well. Make sure they're all happy. That's what your religion does. It makes sure the dysgenic masses are happy, and anyone who has anything, you demonize us. We're not unhappy. You know, I like having a body image issue. I like going out there and being like, I want to look good today. I do. I want to be a little bit concerned about my appearance because I don't want to walk around frumpy and ugly. Okay.
Okay. So I mean, so I would say depression is not. It's not a secret. It's well known to be rising rapidly in the West and not in the East. That's kind of like
Oh,
secular
please. You
science.
people in the East live in fucking communist terror camps. Don't tell me they're not depressed. You think the communist Chinese regime is really reporting how much depression there's going on in China? Are you like,
I love China. You should go. You should
oh,
find
I
out.
should go to China where they're not even allowed to leave the factory to go see their family. Yeah, I should go live there.
I would
Maybe
recommend.
then all the homosexuals will be happy if we go live in communist China. Is this your plan for world happiness and world peace?
I would recommend people because I thought, for example, the Chinese were persecuting the Uyghur Muslims, right? And this is most Muslims
They're
had that
persecuting the
feeling,
Muslims.
right? But then what I did, I went to YouTubers who are living there, people who visit there, and you have the exact opposite reality.
Oh yeah, so all these people that protest outside the assemblies and stuff, they're all liars. All these people with flags, Chinese human rights violations, and all the cults that come over here because they're being persecuted. This is all lies, according to you.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah, it's very easy to. I would say there's some logic that I want to demonstrate, which is if you want to run a country, even a dictatorship, it's better to have the populace or the civilians on your side. It's better not to persecute them unnecessarily because you don't get them to work very well, and also you're spending all your energy controlling them. It's better to. So that's my logic. You don't have to agree, but a lot of people won't agree with me.
To say that China is a haven of human rights violation is just beyond logic and reason. I understand why you're Muslim now, because there's absolutely no logic to that statement whatsoever. That people are better off in the Chinese Republic of China than they are in the United States of America. That's just beyond the pale. That's retarded.
This is interesting. So Claire, who's a friend of both of us, she says China has LGBT rights. Interesting. I mean, she's Chinese ethnically, so that's interesting. What's this one? Unmarried parents should be treated as sexual offenders. I mean, okay, let's get into that.
Yes, because I'm sure you're closer to that. I'm sure you're closer to something like that, wanting to bring God back into the situation.
No, but let me give you the logical reasoning, because it's not just based on I believe, therefore. So there's a very strong statistic that says if you have a child who doesn't have a father who's around, let's say fatherless child, that makes them far more likely to be criminal and so many other issues.
Yeah, but
how do you feel about that?
You're forgetting to understand that you heterosexual men set up this system. Once we get rid of you and we rearrange it the way we want it to be, we're not going to have these problems. So you built a system that's breaking now. Yeah, of
Can you
course.
explain? I don't understand.
Everyone used to be dependent on the monogamous heterosexual male system. That's the only way you really could get around in society in the past. That was the way it was, and that was the only way it was. Now, yes, we have to break that system. And when you make an omelet, you're going to break some eggs. It's going to cause some problems. But when we reorganize ourselves on a better system.
Okay, so can you solve this particular problem? Say there's a lesbian couple. Do you believe in lesbians having children?
Yes.
Okay, so a lesbian couple is a couple where the child does not have a father, right?
Yes.
So statistically, their children are more likely to be criminals. How would you solve this
where does
problem?
it say the children of lesbians are more likely to become criminals?
No,
where
I mean, I just because you believe in science and you believe in
but
logic.
Where did it say that? Where did it say the children of lesbians are more likely to become criminals?
It's part of the same. It's part of the same statistic that if you don't have a
hold
father
on, I want to look that up because I don't believe that.
Sure, yeah, exactly. People can check this up. This is increasingly becoming.
Children of lesbians are more likely to commit crimes.
And the more general search would be children who do not have a father.
Not having a father and being raised by lesbians are two different things.
Oh, really? Okay.
Can
you explain? Maybe I don't understand. Go for it.
Well, okay, if you have two mothers and you have two parents, it's different than being a single mother without a father. There's a difference between having two female parents and having only one female parent. So you can't just lump in that because fatherless homes, the children are having more problems. That means the same goes for lesbian homes, because that's something totally different. You can't make that assumption. You can't just go from one mother also equals lesbian parents. You can't make that. I mean, no wonder you're a Muslim, because you don't think scientifically, because no scientific study would ever say in single mother equals two mothers. Those are two totally different situations.
So, okay. I mean, there's a comment that I don't understand, but maybe somebody who knows you better. He says, "Can you ask Vincent why he hates being gay?" I don't understand that. Do you understand?
I don't hate being gay.
You love being gay, right?
I don't hate being gay.
You love being gay. I'm saying the opposite, right? I'm disagreeing with him. I mean,
I don't know if I
is
love
any
it.
truth?
I don't know
I'm
if I
just wondering
love
why
it.
he made that comment. I don't understand it. And then
I don't know if I love it, but I mean, no, I don't hate it. I mean, I hate that what people put me through, but I don't hate that I'm gay.
I mean, I don't know if this guy do you know this guy? Does he troll you or something? Can you ask Vincent if he's ever tried to remedy? Okay, I think he's just
and this thing just assuming that people don't have fathers in their lives because they're homosexual. Are you going to say that to every homosexual you ever met? You didn't have a father. You think every homosexual on the planet had no father? I mean, this eventually stops working. Oh, you had a bad relationship with your mom. Like, what about all the straight people who had bad relationships with their mom? What about all the straight guys who had no dad? Like, what this doesn't just because you don't have a dad doesn't mean you're going to be gay, and just because you have a dad doesn't mean you're gonna be straight.
Do you think women and men provide different things to their children in terms of emotional and other needs?
Okay, in lieu, if there is no gay reproduction, yes, it's probably, well, no. Okay, if there's no gay reproduction, then is it probably best? Okay, is it best, or if you don't have gay reproduction, is it best for a baby to be born and it has a mom and a dad and they both stay around? Like, yeah, but that system causes a lot of misery, so there's something better to try.
No, but I was just wondering, let's say we're having a big competition, Muslims versus gays, right? Okay, so we have both systems going on, right? But what I'm saying is, do women, let's say women, provide something that men don't provide emotionally to their children? Are they made
okay, no. This idea that men exclusively provide masculine training and women exclusively provide feminine training is, totally off. Yes, there's a difference between man and a woman, And but again, okay, so I do support unnaturalism in that, yes, the natural probably is to have both a male and female influence there, yes. But as a person who supports, who says that nature's not the best way, and that if we do things unnaturally, we will amplify human ability, I would say that if you put two male partners together, if you have two dads or two moms, that creates kind of like a magnet, or like a magnet. Like, like when you go to a magnet high school and you only learn about science, or if you go to it like polarizes it, and it brings it into an extreme direction that I think, when harnessed, would outdo the children born to the mom and the dad, who kind of had that more centered, or I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying that yes, I think that when boys are raised by fathers alone, that this will create some kind of unnatural synergy, which will give them an advantage. And I think this is what people are scared of.
But that sounds like, to me, when I was learning about communism, they said when we get rid of capitalism, you would have utopia, be perfect, right?
No, we don't have.
They didn't have much evidence of it.
No, we don't have to get rid of you first. We need to just start slowly taking over the population with.
I'm just wondering what the evidence is of your utopia, because all the
you haven't even started it yet. Well, first of all, there's our utopia is already starting, as in there's like millions of children that were born to gay parents all around the world. Sure. So it's not like it's like so far off that it's not even here. Number two, I mean, our plan is to slowly expand our breeding while slowly collapsing your breeding. So, we're not taking it over immediately, because that would be too unstable.
How many kids have you got? How many kids have you got?
I personally have none, but that's.
I'm winning. I got 4. You got 0.
I know, but that's because of life circumstances. Okay, your life circumstances gave you children. I have not had the money. I do not have the money to have children right now.
It's easier for me, right? It's gonna be
be an easy game. Okay, things work out for you. If you're gonna brag about that,
busy, I mean,
there's lots of straight people who can't afford to have kids either. Right. Are you gonna go brag to them? Are you going to go back to them?
Yeah, I'm going to tell them, sort themselves out, to stop being... Have you watched...
So you would tell a family living in America, a man and a woman who had minimum wage jobs, who couldn't even afford themselves to have kids.
It's strange that the poorest people have the most kids. Remember?
I know, but would you tell them, if it were to put them in poverty, would you suggest they have children?
I would say children are a lot cheaper than you think. And also, the reason why a lot of rich people don't have kids is because they have such a heavily materialistic lifestyle that they need so much to be happy.
No, so you're saying that you would chide a man and a woman who couldn't make ends meet for not having children.
I think we could have very extreme examples. So probably not.
I'm not one for telling people. Where are you living, in Britain?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Try getting a job more than $15 an hour in America as a 35-year-old, like manager. I'm not talking about
it's terrible.
Just like try getting. I agree. And then so you're going to tell somebody making $15 an hour and their wife is making $15 an hour to go. They have to pay apartment, a car, haircuts, clothes, this kind of stuff, and they really can't afford. You can't raise a child on that. Barely, maybe one child. I mean, are you really going to kind of like birth guilt them?
I mean, we've got this guy, Universal Truth. He had loads of brothers and sisters. They barely had any money to go. He's an Irish guy, and they barely had any money, no toilets, no nothing. Is that right, Simon? Mr. Universal Truth. There's loads of examples in the past where they managed with very little.
I know, because you're obsessed with quantity and not quality.
Well, I would say they're a lot happier as well. The quality is better.
Stop with that. Who's happier? That's such an opinion. You can't prove that.
Yeah, I mean, people should check for themselves, go to some of these poorer countries, see how many people are smiling, and also come back to the West and see how many people are really depressed, or is it a fake statistic that people...
Yeah, I know. This is your subjective opinion. I don't want to hear that Muslims are so happy. Why is atheism spreading in the Islamic world? Why are there so many revolutions in the Islamic world? Why do Muslims assassinate each other so much?
Yeah, that's a good point. Why? Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I could just say CIA involvement and blah 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 and all this kind of stuff. No, but I think we should take responsibility.
I heard they say the CIA was at the time of Muhammad too. doing all.
That's
No.
good.
Muslims tried to blame the Catholic Church on this espionage and that espionage, and we were being forced, and the Christians were colluding, and no,
Yeah.
you were just being assholes.
Yeah. Okay. So let me because I made a bit of effort to write down some not stories, but um ideas for quotes from this book that I was reading called Them Before Us. I thought I'd just quickly read one, and then just tell me what you think, because you're hoping, I'm sure, to have children through, I don't know, surrogacy or IVF. I mean, what's the reality? Something
Well,
like
it would
that,
have to be.
IVF?
We don't have the baby machines yet, so it would have to be IVF.
Okay, yeah, sure. So I'm going to, where's the tab? Rise of, that's the one. Okay. So I just read one thing. What this book did was to go through besides just lots of facts, examples of what people had said. And I've just clicked on a random one. I think these are specifically IVF related. My conception, so yes, it's an IVF related birth. My conception was bought and sold. My father, the sperm, my father, the sperm prostitute. He was not a he was a seller, not a donor. The cryobanks are $1 billion corporation, not a benevolent non-profit organization to help the infertile. Money is all that matters. Money is dirty, and I was born out of it. My life has a price, and I am the one who bears the consequences. So,
Yeah.
I mean, how do you feel about that?
You're showing me anecdotal evidence of a person who didn't like the fact that they were born through IVF. I can find anecdotal evidence of millions of people who weren't happy that they were born Muslims. I mean, where's this mass movement of people born from IVF who are now like loathing and can't live their lives anymore because they were born through IVF? Is this,
Yeah, I mean, that's
or are you just
interesting.
giving me anecdotal evidence?
Yeah, it is anecdotal. It's true because there's a lot of statistics in this book. Let me just read through it. Is only statistics I've. What was this? 11 times more likely to be sexually abused if you're living with non-biological parents. So if you're born through
Well,
IVF, there's a possibility.
that's because it's generally those children who are not living with their biological parents came out of an unstable heterosexual household and are now being taken care of other people. If the system had not been set up like that, then this wouldn't have happened. Okay, like
Cool.
you failed, so you heterosexuals say, look at when we fail, our children get raped, and so therefore gay people can't have kids. No, just because heterosexuals failed and then gave their children to other heterosexuals who raped them doesn't mean we're going to do that to our kids. That's you people. That's heterosexual lifestyle.
Cool. Okay. I mean, as I say, I'm speaking on behalf of Muslims. I do feel like there was some quotes that I should. Sorry, my voice is getting worse. Get those. Anyway, so I'll quickly share the screen just so it feels like there is some more, say, support that it's not just a Muslim talking, rather it's a Muslim talking that reflecting the teachings of Islam. And I do feel, as I was saying, with all that long introduction or long discussion we've had so far about greed being the driver to a lot of the problems we're suffering from now. So I would even say IVF is a sort of greed for people who are willing to have children despite the reality that a lot of these children won't see their biological parents, or surrogacy, and they still won't have the mother who birthed them, who gestated them, who took, there's an
Well, I
intimate
did say I
connection.
would not involve the mother in the child's life.
I mean, that's good. I'm glad. I'm always
I
glad.
never
I'm not.
said that.
That's good. I'm glad. I'm very happy that you do that. I would love that. I think that's a great thing
But
that
once the
you would do.
birthing pods come, we don't need her.
Yeah, sure. Okay. I mean, I still think that there are examples of people who feel like they're part of a machine rather than a human being if
Okay,
they're
well, there's
made
a
that
lot of
way.
people in Islam that want to escape too and are really upset that they were raised that religion.
Okay, sure. And so I just feel like quoting this, and it might have no benefit to anybody, but for me, it was impactful because of this background of greed confusing people. So, chapter 102, mutual rivalry. Maybe I'll make it bigger. Is it bigger so these people to read? Mutual rivalry in seeking worldly increase diverts you from God till you reach your graves. Nay, you will soon come to know the truth. Nay, again, you will soon come to know. Nay, if you only knew the certain with certain knowledge, you will see hell in this very life. I you will surely see it with the eye of certainty in the hereafter. Then on that day, you'll be questioned about the favors bestowed on you. So people are seeing hell in this life through the choices we're making of greed, and it's being shown in people who are not having children, and most depressed women are those who followed careers rather than
No,
family.
that's no, no. Look. You can't. Muslims don't have a monopoly on hell. Don't you act you like and you act like anyone who's not you has this monopoly on hell, and you have the answer because you read an article and because you went to the Middle East and looked in people's faces and you determined they smiled more and all this other kind of nonsense. No,
That's not
non-Muslims
nonsense.
do not have a monopoly on hell. Muslims have hell too.
Oh yeah, yeah. You can be a bad Muslim. You can
Not
be
a
a
bad
bad
Muslim. You can
anything.
be a good Muslim with a bad life because you're Muslim.
Okay, I mean, I would say that it's statistically we can see the Muslim way
No,
of life
what
seems to be
statistic? What
working.
statistics are you quoting?
Muslim most have most children, which means most
That
stable
doesn't mean you're
families.
happier. That doesn't mean you're happier.
Mm, I would
No, it
say
means you're
so.
not using birth control because you're anti-feminist and you're not scientific and you're too low and dumb of a people to like keep your numbers in check and would rather starve than have an advanced civilization because that would mean feminism and science and that kind of thing. You don't want any of that around.
Cool. And then the next quote I was going to give from the Quran, which is you could comment on. It says, "Kill not your children for fear of poverty. It is we, that is God, who provide for them and for you. Surely the killing of them is great sin." So basically, killing also includes abortion for fear of poverty. You can have abortion for medical reasons. Let's say it harms the the mother for whatever reason, like too many C-sections or something like that in the past. How do you feel? So, I mean, that ties into the idea of poorer people not being too concerned about money when having children, and it also affects rich people who are overly, I would say, overly concerned about money when they have enough money. How do you feel about that? Oops. Hopefully, that's just an internet issue, and you'll be back in a minute. Um, Okay, and then I wanted to read one more quote. Hopefully, be back in a second. Uh, uh, and this is I'm a big movie fan, uh, and there's a great movie called Blood Diamond, and it reflects the way I see a lot of the issues in the world, and I think a lot of people have realized one of the issues in the world, uh, which is Western society is incredibly confused about, let's say, overly concerned, like this verse of the Holy Quran was saying, overly concerned about mutual rival, having things you don't need to have, which is actually creating hell for yourself. And the quote goes like this. So there's Solomon. uh, Hi. Hey, good to see your face.
Yes. Now you can
Did your
see my face.
connection die?
Yeah, my connection died. Yeah.
Okay, so I don't want to take too much of your time. I'm a big fan of the movies. And have you watched Blood Diamond?
No, no.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna send a link after this video of the the scene that I'm gonna read out, and then you can tell me what you think about it. This is how I see, in a sort of kind of like a roundup of like how I see the issue, right? Great movie with Leonardo DiCaprio and some other great actors, right? And so Leonardo DiCaprio is playing Danny, basically a diamond smuggler. Solomon is an African native of Sierra Leone, where they had a real life conflict over diamonds, essentially. That's why the movie is called Blood Diamond. I'm just going to read it out. Hopefully, I won't ruin it, but I'll send a clip in the comments afterwards. And it goes like this. and they're going towards finding this big diamond that they know is hidden somewhere, where Solomon knows where it is. And he goes, and they're just talking. He says, "How old are you?" Danny goes, "Me, I'm 31." Solomon goes, "And you have no wife?" And Danny goes, "No." Solomon goes, "No children?" Danny goes, "No." Solomon, "And no home?" Danny says, "No." Solomon goes, "But you have money, yes?" And Danny goes, "Yes, some." Solomon goes, "But not enough?" "No." Solomon goes, "And if you get this diamond, will you have enough money? Yes." And Danny says, "Yes." Solomon says, "Then you will get a wife and children?" Danny says, "Probably not. No." Solomon says, "I'm confused." And Danny says, "That makes two of us, my brew." And I do feel that Westerners are deeply confused, and they are, um, let's say, totally confused by what the Quran talks about as mutual rivalry, having stuff you don't need just for the sake of competition. That's what I would say. I'd like you to say your last words. I really value your time so much that I don't really want to take more of your time. And I actually like the fact that your face is here. It's better than the old pictures. I appreciate. And I hope. And also, before I forget, like, I'm really happy. I really enjoyed our very direct conversation. I would like to hear from you about what you think about that, but also how you felt about the conversation. Because I really hope you didn't feel bad about our conversation, that it was very direct, but it wasn't hateful. That's what I felt. But I mean,
No,
go.
I do get angry. I mean, I get angry whenever. I mean, if I'm talking to a religious person, you're a religious person. I do get aggravated. I think that only certain types of people are religious, and I think the type of people who are not, who I've never met a good religious person. I'll tell you that much. But yeah. I mean,
I give
it's
charity and stuff.
I don't know. Lots of evil people do charity. I mean, just because I mean, even that's just a religious thing to say, oh, I do charity. That means I'm not evil. Like, only a religious person would say that, because a person who's not religious is not that dumb. They're just because I do charity doesn't mean I'm not evil. Like, I know that in my head right away, and I would never say that out loud. So it's aggravating to hear somebody say that.
So anyway, what did you think about my quotes from
Well, I mean, I
Blood
think that
Diamond?
I think that
Oh, sorry.
look,
Can I put the quote? I'll
look,
put the quote up so everybody can read it or
it's
see.
look. So the West was Christian, but that doesn't work, and so we're leaving it, and so we have nothing to replace it with right now. So we're a little bit messed up, but that doesn't mean Islam is the answer. Islam is the same problem. We escaped Christianity. We don't need to go backwards. Going backwards is not the answer. Like, something needs to happen, and I've been laying out my program, but something does need to happen.
We
But
need a religion of some sort, either your religion, clear secular Islam, or real Islam. Some religion, right? Some sort
some
of
ideology, if
code.
it's not a religion, an ideology. An
At least we agree
ideology.
on that.
An ideology, yes, an
Cool.
ideology. So there needs to be some kind of ideology, but it's not, there's nothing wrong with, even look, why can't you be Muslims who just use birth control just enough to keep your population static so you can take care of the children you have? Like, what's wrong with that? Like, I'm not saying like have no kids and become materialistic, but why can't you just like even it out a little bit and be a little bit more conscientious to the other human beings on this planet?
We're trying to keep the human race going at the moment.
Yeah,
It's a
but
bit of a
very
problem.
low end. Like, that's
I mean, maybe if the white guys made more of an effort, then we wouldn't have to try so much.
well, yeah, well, yeah, but taking like, yeah, the white man's way is science, not religion and like no birth control. Like, that's not the white man's way. White is advanced and not, bad. Spaceship. White is spaceship, future, Star Trek, Star Wars, not
Matrix,
Matrix. Yes, yes, that's white future. Something a little bit more.
dystopian.
No, oh please, Islam is
I'm having
dystopian.
fun. I'm fun. I'm
Oh
having
please,
fun.
I mean, yeah, no, but I mean, anyone who's coming from an Islamic background to call anyone else a dystopian is just aggravating.
Yeah.
It's aggravating.
So just to wind up, like, would you like to share some more your like final thoughts that I interrupted or something, and then I'll say like, how did you feel about it after that, or the whole conversation? Because I would personally, I want you back loads of times and keep this relationship going and having these really interesting conversations going. But before that, did I cut you off with something that you feel like you wanted to say that you want to say?
Oh, no, no, we got no.
Okay, cool. And then, do you feel like you'll come back for more conversations? I hope you will.
Yes, I will. Maybe if we yeah, on a different subject, yes.
Yeah, exactly. We don't want to bore the viewers. We were talking about different stuff. We covered homosexuality really well, I think. And
Yes,
I
we
think
did.
people are pretty amazed. They've never heard of this kind of um, next level, no human reproduction. So thank you for your unique ideas or relatively unique ideas.
Okay, well,
All
thank
right.
you for having me.
You're welcome. All right. Thank you so much for your time as well. Peace be upon you. Bye.